Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. I still see some people joining, so we're going to give it just about a minute, and then we shall begin. As you're all joining in and looking through the list, it's great to see familiar faces, familiar names, some faces. It would be great if you could, in the chat, just let us know where you're from, where you're joining us from, or what organization you represent. It would be really awesome to know who's in the room. And once you let us know where you're joining us from in the chat, we shall begin momentarily. Hello, Marcel from Cameroon, welcome.
Hello.
Excellent. All right, we've got people from Cameroon, from Houston, Texas, from Kigali, Rwanda, from Ethiopia. Welcome, one and all. Tanzania, welcome. From Edmonton, Alberta, that's Canada. Welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once more for joining us for this Mojaloop Training Program webinar. This webinar is focused on the new courses we recently announced. That is the Testing Toolkit, DFSP 209 and Hub 209. And don't worry if that jargon doesn't make sense to you, we will make sense of it very shortly. But to start with, I wanted to give everybody a heads up on a little housekeeping. One, this session is currently being recorded, and everyone will, within 24 hours, will receive a recording of this event, of this webinar, and also a survey. We do encourage you to take the survey and give us your feedback at the end of this webinar. Two, we do have, we do have a section for questions and answers, and we do encourage them. So if you have questions and answers, please hold on to the questions until the end of the webinar. We have some time allocated to answer your questions. If you are like me and potentially can forget your question, feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat as we go along, and we'll review those and address them at the end of the webinar. Again, if you have no questions now or no comments, and you still want to reach us maybe tomorrow or next week or any time in the future, feel free to send us an email at training@mojaloop.io. Today's agenda, again, we've just cleared the training program. I will give you a quick overview of the Mojaloop Training Program, and then we will focus on the 3 new courses. That's the Testing Toolkit, the DFSP 209, which focuses on technical operations as a DFSP, Hub 209, the technical operations as at hub level, and then after that, we'll take questions and answers. Again, thank you so much for joining us. So the training program is essentially the tool Mojaloop Foundation uses to help you understand or accelerate your understanding of Mojaloop. Make sure that we also encourage informed advocacy, just put you in a better place to know what you're talking about or help you better understand Mojaloop. One of the things we are very, very happy about and very proud of, the Mojaloop Foundation has 10 courses. That's all listed in the chat on the side of the screen there. There's Moja 101, which focuses on the Mojaloop introduction. There is Moja 102, which focuses on Mojaloop APIs. Moja 103, which focuses on Mojaloop technical overview. Moja 104, which talks about Mojaloop security. And these are by far the most popular courses that we have at the Mojaloop training program. And many of you here on this webinar today have gone through these courses, and we thank you for your feedback and for your input on that material. A few others, the Scheme 101, Scheme Overview. New this year, we have DFSP 101, DFSP Overview, DFSP 209, DFSP Operations, Hub 101, which is a hub overview, Hub 209, hub operations, and an exciting new tool called the Mojaloop Testing Toolkit. So a course that focuses exclusively on that. So today's webinar will focus on DFSP 209, Hub 209, and Testing Toolkit. Now, one of the things that we've spoken about in the past for the Mojaloop Training Program is how you can engage with the Mojaloop Training Program. One, we invite you to join us to review new and existing content, act on the feedback that we received from other course participants, and also help us develop new ideas for courses and programs around the new courses. And this year, we want to focus on developing the following courses. That is DFSP 203, DFSP 204, Hub 204, focusing on 3PPI or third-party payment integration, and an executive series courses. If anyone has an interest in developing these courses, we more than welcome participation from anyone with subject matter expertise who can help us put this together. We made a similar call a couple of months ago, and these excellent people you see on your screen stepped up, and they helped us create the courses that you're going to hear about today. We have Mr. Paul Baker from ModusBox, Vijaya Guthi from ModusBox as well, Sam Kummary from ModusBox, and John Muthiora from AfricaNenda. Each of these people will be taking us through some of the details and giving us a quick overview of the specific courses that we're reviewing today. So why don't we get started? We'll start with Testing Toolkit 101. Vijay and Sam, are you guys there and ready?
Yes, Simeon, thank you.
Oh, I'll pass it over to you, and then if you can speak through the slide, and then we can go over to you sharing the screen. So over to you, Sam.
Yes, thank you, Simeon. So when you're ready, if you allow me to share the screen, I would like to do a walkthrough. Thanks, everyone. So TTK 101, another acronym added to the Mojaloop ecosystem, but hopefully it's straightforward. So this stands for the Testing Toolkit. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. So Vijay Guthi here, and Sam Kummary, that's me. We both will be spending the next 14 to 15 minutes walking through the course outline and touching on a few topics at a high level of the testing toolkit. Before we even go into the details, I'd like to thank all the contributors who helped in developing the toolkit and also development of this course. Some people who actively worked on adding features and test cases, and others who helped in supporting this program. With that, let me start sharing my screen. So as you sign up for the MTP program and navigate to the Testing Toolkit course, this is what you will be seeing. And then I'd like to start with the landing page and touch on the first two modules, introductory modules, and then we'll pass on to Vijay for a little bit more detail on the topics and some demos. So this is the landing page for the toolkit, and you'll see the introduction, the learning outcomes. So one of the course outcomes that we wanted to do as we developed the testing toolkit, we thought, okay, it should be something that everyone can use easily and configurable, and then customized to their own usage scenarios or use cases. And then we thought it should be in a way that anyone can take it and extend it, because not all of us use things in the same way. Especially in Mojaloop ecosystem, we have a lot of customizations based on scheme requirements and market usage. So I thought there should be some tool which can be configurable and easy to use. And then we should make a course about this. So as Simeon touched on it, there was an opportunity to do that. And out of that came TTK 101. I'm really thankful for everyone who contributed to this. So at the end of this course, we'd like everyone to be able to understand what the testing toolkit is, describe its basic usage scenarios and features, and then customize it to their own usage scenarios or use cases. This can be used for validating Mojaloop API implementations in development and demos as well, which we'll do later on. With that, I'd like to spend looking at a bit more of the core structure. So as you can see here, the MTP program overall is depicted here, and the TTK fits in under the tools category. So we hope we'll build this even into a bigger chart, but right now TTK is a supporting tool for the whole ecosystem. And let's look at the various modules here. So the first two modules are the introductory modules. The first one explaining or introducing what the testing toolkit is, how to get started with a quick start guide, some installation steps and scenarios. And then the second module covering the various usage scenarios, how the TTK can be used and where it fits in the Mojaloop scheme of things. And then the rest of the four modules focus on each of the use case that is widely used at the moment for validation using testing toolkit for validating Mojaloop API implementations. I say API implementation because it can be used to validate both sides, the FSP side of things and also the scheme or the hub, Mojaloop hub side of things, and how TTK can be used to accelerate development. And then we'll see a couple of demos that Vijaya will do later on to see to show how testing toolkit can be used for demonstration purposes, and then how TTK can be used for onboarding FSPs. Onboarding can be an overloaded term, but for onboarding FSPs onto a scheme. So what is the testing toolkit? So we try to explain that and how to get it running quickly locally. And then some basic features, talking about the various aspects of the testing toolkit user interface and command line interface as well. In the use cases, we'll see some scenarios of where the testing toolkit can be used, whether it can be used on the peripheries, like the edges with the financial service providers themselves, and how it can be used on the switch to simulate a switch or simulate an FSP or a payee FSP, payer FSP, various things like that. So I will go on to what the testing toolkit is to start with. So when Mojaloop initially started, we had the Mojaloop reference implementation and the Mojaloop API. At the time, it was just one API, but Mojaloop FSP interoperability API. But later on, we had the settlements API, administration API, and now we have many more third-party API, reporting, FX, and various others that are in development. So we wanted some tool that doesn't go out of date. So what we noticed was that any test that we write for Mojaloop implementation are getting out of date easily and can get out of date easily with changes in versions. So we thought we need a tool that can stand the test of time, that will not get outdated easily, that is easy to use and configurable. So there is a user interface that is very user friendly. So I'll go into the various roles that can be used. So as you can see here, Mojaloop uses mostly asynchronous APIs, the FSP interoperability API, the third-party API, and others that are asynchronous. So some of the tools that are widely used now for API testing and exploration do not give the capabilities for receiving callbacks, meaning we can send and make an HTTP call and look at a synchronous response, but to receive a HTTP call, we don't have the capabilities in the existing tools. So TTK addresses that, the testing toolkit addresses that, and it has several advanced capabilities as well. And even now, it is a highly configurable tool, meaning you can take the testing toolkit and onboard any API, any asynchronous or synchronous API easily, and then start using to validate or test an implementation that implements that API. So the asynchronous side of things needs some configuration to do callback mapping, but we have some items in progress which makes that even more user friendly, which we can assign through which we can assign callbacks from the user interface itself. So some of the goals, as I've tried to explain here, were we wanted something that is easy and simple to use by anyone, not just technical users such as developers, architects, but also by product, business, and regulatory users for demonstration purposes, and of course by QA users as well. So It should be highly configurable so that it can be used in various usage scenarios. And we should be able to validate both synchronous responses that we receive immediately and also callbacks that we receive a little bit later. So some scenarios, some usage scenarios here. It can be used for exploration, for business users, and then it can be used in development to accelerate development. For example, in the Mojaloop system, we have the microservice architecture, and let's say during the development of one of the services, we do not have access to, let's say, a whole set of services that represent the Mojaloop switch or a part of it. So TTK can be used to simulate the other side of things, so that even locally we can have something simulating a switch or an adjacent service, so that we can test and look at the requests easily. So we look at the some of the use cases that Vijaya will demo, and then see what I'm talking about here. Then it can be used for validation and onboarding, and finally some demonstration use cases. We have more than 2 or 3 occasions where we used it for demonstrations, like in hackathons, and to demonstrate some of the basic Mojaloop use cases. So I will pass on to Vijay to start with the demos and touch on some high-level topics. Thank you. And we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks, Sam. Hello, everyone. This is Vijay Kumar. I am working for ModusBox. Let me share my screen. Can you see the Chrome browser?
Yeah.
Okay. First, I would like to show you some demos, which explains the basic use cases. Some of the use cases, as Sam mentioned. So this is the mobile simulator page in the testing toolkit. So I am using the testing toolkit instance, which is deployed as part of the Mojaloop installation. So you can see the URL. I am accessing the remote testing toolkit, which is deployed in a Kubernetes. So with this page, we can make a transfer, a simple peer-to-peer transfer, which flows through the real Mojaloop switch. So here, testing toolkit acts as pair and pay simulator. So on the left-hand side, this is a mobile app simulator, which is payer, pink bank, and on right-hand side, green bank, which is payee. So we can input some phone number, which is MSI SDN ID in Mojaloop terminology. And when I click find button here, it sends party lookup request. You can see the request here, get parties. And we will get put parties callback from the green bank. So after receiving the callback, the sender app here displays the information. I think my network connection is slow. That's why it took time. So yeah, we got information about the party, like first name, last name, and the FSP ID, which is green bank. Then we can enter amount and the currency and click on get quote. Here we will get the quote information. I think my network connection is slow. Let me refresh the page. Can you hear me?
Yes, Vijay, we can hear you fine.
Okay, let me try it again. Okay, we got party information. Now it's working. So quote. we got fee and commission from the payee. And when we click on proceed, oh, something seriously wrong with my network connection. Okay, maybe something wrong with the deployment. So anyway, we can get the calls, network calls here. We can see the calls in as a sequence diagram, both requests and callbacks. And also, if we open the logs, we can see the actual request going through the Mojaloop switch, and also the callback we got. So this is the callback for party lookup. So this page can be used for demonstration purpose, like a simple peer-to-peer transfer with the sequence diagram, and also with the actual request content. We also use this page for testing purpose. If we want to make some random transfers, we will use this page and execute the transfers. So this is a use case, and the other use case is for validation, validating the Mojaloop deployment. So the page you are seeing here is TestRunner in the testing toolkit, and so this is like a Postman collection. So we can import the collection like Golden Path collection, which is provided along with the Helm Mojaloop Helm release. Let's say, for example, 13.10 version. You will get a corresponding version for the TTK test cases. So you can import them and execute the collection to know if the switch is working correctly or not. So here I selected one happy path, and you can see the all results are all the tests are passed here. And we can also use this editor to create the test cases. If we want some custom test cases, we can create them. For now, there are 2,500 assertions covered in the 13.10 Mojaloop Helm release. So coming back to course, so those the two demos I showed are for some use cases like demonstration and validation. Let's say if you are a developer and you want to use testing toolkit for your development. So we can go to here, install and setup section, and you can spin up the testing toolkit on your machine. GitHub links are provided here, and if we scroll down, this is the Docker version. So the easiest version to get onboarded with the testing toolkit is Docker. You can install Docker on your machine and git clone the repository, and then Docker compose up. The testing toolkit services will be up on your machine, and you can access the web URL on localhost 6060 to get the testing toolkit user interface. And also there are a couple of other methods like running testing toolkit as node service, and then Helm. There is a Helm chart if you want to deploy in Kubernetes. And also, if you don't want to install any software on your machine, then you can download the executable for your operating system from the testing toolkit releases page. So all the steps are explained here. So you can go through the course, the installation steps, and let's see the basic features. Let's say you're running Testing Toolkit on your machine. Then you will get some user interface with these options, monitoring. So if you want to send some requests to Testing Toolkit, so you can see those requests here in the monitoring page. So the content of the request and both incoming and outbound requests. So this can be used for debugging purpose. And then TestRunner, as I explained before, this can be used for creating test cases for your implementation, both positive and negative test cases. You can make assertions on the results. So this is for validating. And for business users who wants to explore the APIs, Mojaloop APIs, so they can use this. So there are APIs provided along with the testing toolkit, FSP API, the Mojaloop central admin settlement, all the Mojaloop related APIs. So you can see the documentation of those APIs. And this is some basic features of testing toolkit web interface. And yeah, there is rules. So if you want to tell testing toolkit to get customized responses for your request, let's say if you want to send a request from your implementation to testing toolkit, and you want to get some specific response. Either it can be either a success response or error response. So you can configure rule, some conditions, and then the expected response. Then testing toolkit will be throw that response. And then testing toolkit command line interface. For example, you created some test cases for your implementation, and you want to run those test cases in automation like CI/CD. So you can use testing toolkit command line client. With this, you can supply the test cases and execute them in the remote environment like CI/CD, Docker, or some automation. So yeah, there is a quick start section here for the command line client, and the results can be seen in the console format. So you can explore the CLI section of the course. So yeah, these are the some basic features. With that, I will hand over to Sam.
Thank you, Vijay. So we have some items on the roadmap that we're currently addressing, such as making sure it fits in well with Payment Manager and adding more test cases for validating Mojaloop switch deployments, and some extension scenarios as well to make it more easier with asynchronous APIs. So yeah, I've noted down about 6 questions now. We'll answer during the Q&A, but thank you everyone. Thanks, Vijay. Simeon, over to you.
Thanks so much, Sam and Vijay. I've noticed too, there's lots of really good questions coming in. Please keep putting your questions in the chat. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a chance for you to voice any questions, and the speakers can answer them in the chat as well. I want to pass it over to Mr. Paul Baker to talk about the FSP operations. Paul, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. Yeah. My name is Paul Baker. I'm from ModusBox, engineering manager there, and I've been very much involved in putting this DFSP 209 Hub operations course together. What I would like to take you guys through today is is just a demonstration, a quick demonstration of what's there, introduction of the course. And what I would really like to do is whet your appetite a little bit, so you like what you see, and I'm trying to entice you to take the course, but by doing that, I want you to understand exactly what's being covered in the course, so you can understand if it's relevant for you or not. So before we start, well, let me start with who's this course for? You know, this is a DFSP hub, well, DFSP operations course, the DFSP 209, and it is for DFSPs having connected or about to connect to a Mojaloop switch, and really how it's an introductory course. It's a fairly short course. And the intention is to describe at a high level what you need to be thinking about, how you need to go about it. Why is Mojaloop different to other environments? So here's an example. I've jumped to a slide, not at the beginning of the course, but it's just going to help me describe this. Is who's this for? So as a DFSP, the DFSP in Mojaloop is a digital financial service provider. And we are really trying to create interoperability between lots of different financial players. And typically these players might not have connected to each other in the past. So what does it mean now connecting to a Mojaloop switch? Well, a Mojaloop switch has some unique challenges like real-time 24/7 non-repeatability, and it is a real-time payment switch, which means the clearing happens immediately. So, for example, if you're a bank, you're used to sort of transferring of money, but maybe not clearing immediately. That's a bit different and comes with different risks and different things that you need to be worried about. 24/7 connections, banks are getting more used to, and then, for example, wallet providers, you're used to transacting in real time, but maybe not used to transfer of money and how that happens to the same level that banks are. And then we've got sort of credit union cycles and finance, microfinance organizations, and there's a long host of other providers as well, fintechs and sort of specialized groups who maybe traditionally have not been allowed to connect into a big interoperable sort of networks. And so it comes with brand new risks and connection parameters. And really that's what this course is about. It's about taking from the background that you've got and explaining what's important inside Mojaloop and why it's important and how you should go about thinking about connecting to Mojaloop. And building out that sort of technical operations sort of functionality for your business. So I'm going to jump back to the intro slide. What is TechOps all about? And really it's about covering three fundamental things. The first one is ensuring in 24/7 uptime reliability. And I think that's the part we all understand well. The next one is mitigating risk. So TechOps isn't the only part of your business that mitigates risk, but it is that sort of technical implementation of your automated risk mitigation structures. So it's one of those solid pillars of your risk mitigation process in your organization, and it needs to be thought of that way and planned that way. And in a real-time switch, there are real risks that need to be mitigated. So this is an important part of your business you need to get right. And then the last point here is about continuous improvement. Now, this really future-proofs your structure and your organization. And the way to do that is allow yourself to change and adapt, you know. And we don't like updates that cause problems, and really TechOps is about how do you do that without causing problems? How do you upgrade or extend or expand your organization, make it adaptable to change without any of the risks that come along with that. And there's a whole lot of processes that are important to consider and put in place. So that's my high-level intro at the moment. Then next, I want to just do a brief introduction into each of the main modules after this, so that you understand exactly what's in the course. So the next module I've got here is really technical operations support, and really we talk about the different structures and the different processes that are important to have within your organization, like incident management, change management, and SLAs, how to design the process, disaster recovery. These are very standard, but when connecting to a real-time switch, they are important to have at least some level of these processes in place before you connect. Next, I would like to cover supportive tooling, and the reason why supportive tooling is important is because it's really about using technology to make your team effective. And these are standard tools out there, and you need to know about them, and you need to sort of use them to make your team effective. Especially if you're a small team, then you really want the right people looking at the right issues at the right time, solving the right problems, and really there's a whole host of ticketing tools, defect triage mechanisms, and alerting mechanisms that help you and your team get that right. And then the last part of the course that I would like to just glance over briefly is how to structure your organization for operational support. Now, at a high level, the way we've done this is we've taken sort of functional areas and we've grouped them together and called them functional centers, and then we sort of display them this way. So there's a couple of things we're trying to do here. The first one is for you to understand the depth of the functionality that you need to take on and support. The other one is to recognize the different hats that sit within your organizations. For instance, the service manager definitely plays a very different role to the operational center guy who's holding it all together. And then you've got the call center team, and then security and compliance. And they all sort of sort of work together to provide that sort of complete solution. So it's important to understand that flow and how that can work within your organization. But we don't want this to scare you, especially if you're a small organization. And that is because you might have a really small team and this looks overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be. So it's important to understand the depth of what is going on there. But then what we've also done down here is to show you how you can scale it up. So when you're a small team, the way you organize this and the level of responsibility is not the same as when you're a big team. So you can start small and take on certain responsibilities, and then as your team gets bigger, you can then sort of scale that out and build it into more functional centers. Because the hope is that Mojaloop makes you effective and then grow in the process. So we want this this process to be able to size up, to scale up and scale down appropriately for your organization. And that's my summary. We will definitely have questions at the end if you've got any. Back to you, Simeon.
Thanks so much, Paul. I will pass it quickly to John Muthiora, if I can quickly share my screen one more time. And John is the course developer for the Hub 209, Hub Operations. Hub Operation, I'm just trying to find the share button here. There we go. And John will give us an overview, as the course developer will give us an overview of the course, its structure, and a few other points as indicated there in your screen. John, are you ready?
I'm ready. Please grant me the ability to share my screen.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Thank you very much. So unlike the preceding two courses, the TTK and the DFSP courses, the Hub 209 is really targeted at hubs, and by the hub we mean the Mojaloop switch. So the objective of this course is to introduce the hub operator who will be implementing the scheme rules. Just give them an overview of the different tools and processes that they need to successfully operate a hub. And I will go through the course structure because a lot of the modules are similar. It's split into 7 broad sections. There's an introduction and 7 more. And we look at giving an overview of what it is that a hub operator will be needing to understand as they start operating a hub. At the beginning, you have few DFSPs, you have few transactions, you're refining your processes. And then you have questions about how many people do I need? What do I place to successfully support those who are there? How do I integrate with the settlement bank? How do we manage the lookup directory service? How do we set up monitoring so that we're able to proactively detect when there's an issue on the platform? And then as the usage increases, as you increase the number of DFSPs, as you increase the number of actual users who are transferring funds across the platform, across the hub, how do we ensure that the hub operations are scaling with the demand that we see, not just in terms of personnel, but even technically on the technology platform, the hardware, the operational services themselves, and in terms of our response time. We also look at questions around defining the kinds of service levels that will meet the demand of a 24/7 switch, so that while in the beginning, it might be running only during working hours, Monday to Friday. Once it's fully scaled out, you would be having hundreds or thousands of transactions a second running across the hub. How do you ensure that you proactively detect any challenges and problems and quickly resolve them before they become customer impacting issues, especially if they're happening at the hub? So after, as we say here, after going through this course, we want that participants would understand requirements for successfully operating a hub, be able to build out a sandbox and use it to validate DFSP readiness as they come on board, certify them for readiness to work with the hub, and then additionally provide layers of support that would help in resolution of issues rapidly and effectively to restore service. The way the course is structured is covered in the introduction, and we have the Hub 209 course here under the Hub related courses. This one is focused exclusively on technical operations, but also touches to some extent on additional operational areas that will work together with technical operations, and I'll touch on those as we go through in the next few minutes. And it also has a small summary here just to give you an overview of what each module covers. So while I'll not click on each button and each module, I'll just give you a small taste of what is covered in the course because it's fairly extensive. But we give you an overview of what each module covers, what is addressed in each segment, and give an overview in the beginning, look at the support areas, which include the technology, personnel, and processes. We do a deep dive into processes in the next 3 or so modules as how they interact with the technology and with the DFSPs. Then we go into technology that is used to support connectivity, monitoring, and the service desk. And then finally, we look at some important support areas that a hub operator might want to consider. We additionally then have a small summary at the end. And as with each module, there's a summary at the end, and some will also include some small quiz to help you confirm your understanding of the content. So in the hub operations overview, which I will go into in some detail, but then because it touches on all the others, we are looking at how do we support in the implementation of scheme rules. They define who are the supported DFSPs, what are the kinds of transactions we will support and the use cases. It also helps the hub operator decide and define how they're going to support hub participants. And so it looks at market engagement and how you bring the process, configuring the platform, looking at the financial aspects and of course other compliance activities, but additionally on the other operational details. What are the organizational structure you need to have in place? What functions do you need to deliver to the participants? And internally, what processes support that? And how do you onboard and run the hub? How do you onboard the FSPs and run the hub? So at a high level, there are certain key skills that you want to be able to have in-house when you're starting to scale up the hub. And in the beginning, we look at these functions as functional areas. We want to be able to address all of these areas to ensure that we are not only doing technology side work, but we are complying with regulator requests, we're complying with scheme rules, also engaging the appropriate DFSPs in the use cases that we need to do, as well as report back to them at the end of every period as agreed. These are functions that you would want to have within the hub. Think of each box as maybe a task or an activity. These are not roles. You may initially have one person doing all the things in green and yellow, for example. Maybe everything that's in green. You may also have one person or two people for segregation of duties running all the functions addressed here. The second thing is that right at the beginning, there are certain activities that you may not find necessary. And as we cover in the course, we help the hub operator think through what are the key considerations that you need to keep in mind as you sequence out the buildup of the hub. What particular functions should never be considered for outsourcing? What decisions should be considered when aggregating the functions together? And then that builds into staffing and how you can repurpose people and any other considerations that you may have. As I mentioned earlier, you then have a chance to evaluate yourself as you move on to the phases. I've mentioned phases earlier, and we've broken this into 3 phases: an early phase, a mid phase, and the production phase. In the early phase, you're probably doing a proof of concept. You want to evaluate the technology itself and the processes that you have in place, but not much more than that. That's done in a mid phase. You would want to scale that out and then do some interactions with DFSPs in a small group of select DFSPs. And then when you're finally in production, you want to have all these functions in there. As we've said here at the bottom, these in red are really not required at this stage, but at this early stage. And we give you recommendations on the key functions, how to outsource them, and a few characteristics of this phase. We do the same for the mid phase, and then we move on to considering the production and non-production environments that you may have in place. How development, your user acceptance testing, the sandbox and what it is for, and your staging environment. We align that with what is likely there in your DFSP environments so that the hub operator is able to understand how they can collaborate with DFSPs as they scale up. We also give you a glossary in each of the sections where new terms are being introduced, and then move on into the support overview. On this particular one, I would like to just cover 2 things. The first is that we have a goal around the support, and that is to ensure that technical support is optimized to provide efficient resolution of issues at the hub as effectively and as quickly as possible. When you're running hundreds of transactions a second, as I said earlier, you want to minimize downtimes, and when they occur, provide quick workarounds or solutions so that you can restore services as quickly as possible. You provide a workaround as you go back to resolve the issue. So again, as we said, there's a production phase and the characteristics of this phase. The important thing to keep in mind is that while the hub is a single entity, they're interacting with different types of DFSPs. Some have a centralized model, large multinational organizations, which have central control of their technology and business teams, and they have a standardized model of how they implement across each country. So that requires a different approach from where you have a DFSP, which is regionally controlled with a standardized model. Because then, in this place, you might work with a singular team, while with the regional team, you're working with the regional model, you're working with different regional teams, which requires retraining, additional effort, and different set of planning. Sometimes language could be an issue, currencies could be an issue as well, and that's an important thing to factor in mind as you look at the different setups of DFSPs that hub operators work with. The other area that I would like to highlight is that as the hub is set up, we've now taken those functions and split them into different units. The 4 areas we like to cover is what we call self-service, level 1 support, level 2 and level 3 support, as well as a management layer. These are functions, not roles, meaning that you could, in the beginning, have just 1 or 2 people running each of these activities. We ask you the segregation of duties, but then we also give some guidance on how this can be scaled up from a very small or very early stage where you have 2 people, the blue and the green, working together with a service provider or vendor in purple. When that scales up or it's a larger sized hub, you may split that technical function in blue into 2 aspects and then have 2 green areas for service management, security and compliance. And then finally, for a very large hub, each of these small boxes could actually be an individual person who's supporting that particular function and anything in between. And we discuss the considerations that go into that. We then have end-to-end support that's provided by the hub operator. As I mentioned earlier, there's SLA management for service levels across DFSPs, a settlement bank, regulator requirements, as well as the scheme owner. There might be other stakeholders you want to support, but it's always important to keep in mind what are your obligations to each of them, what are your KPIs, and how do you turn them into SLAs. And we discuss some of the terms that need to be considered and how those are implemented. So from there, we then go into processes. And there's an we have several processes we look at. I'll just give an overview of a first one, given we are pressed for time. The first one is incident management. And this is what happens when there's some failure in delivering a payment or a transfer. There could be a request for help or support from a DFSP, or our systems as a hub operator could proactively detect an outage or a problem developing. So this allows for the detection, recording, analysis, and service restoration when there's an issue, and allows us to make sure that we are doing this within the predefined SLA commitments. Each process in the course has defined boundaries. Where does it begin and end? What are the inputs required for successful take-on of this process? What are the outputs in terms of resolution? And then what are the steps that you have in terms of beginning to end, working through that process? So we go through this for the problem management as well. Change management and release management are processes we've built out to ensure that at the very end of it, we are maintaining service availability while continuously building out new deployments of software, increasing updates, making underlying changes or security patches, or whatever it is that's required, but ensuring that it's being done in a controlled way where there's end-to-end communication with all involved or affected stakeholders, and that the process is visible and honors SLAs and other commitments that are in place. In the release management process, we look at several environments and how DFSPs migrate from sandbox through to production after certification. We also look at how software moves from the lab QA dev environments through user acceptance into production and give some guidance on how that can be run. We also look at the connectivity tooling and some aspects of what is needed to support the DFSPs to be onboarded successfully. And also, once they've been successfully onboarded, how do you then drive alerts, health monitoring, and performance monitoring on the switch or the hub? For connectivity tooling, we've picked an example of one of the tools that's already in the community, and that's the payment manager, that allows you to consider how does Mojaloop connect with the backend core banking or backend system of the DFSP. What services are provided in there, and how does this support ease of onboarding of DFSPs? For DFSP, for service desk tooling, we've given some guidelines on how one should evaluate this process of onboarding a service desk tool, just considering different attributes that apply and how they specifically can be implemented within the hub. We then finally look at specific scenarios around the API gateway and how to provide scenarios for support in that regard, and then come to the conclusion and wrap up of the course. I hope everything has been clear. If not, please let me know, and if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John. And that was an excellent overview of the courses that, the 3 new courses. I have noticed a number of questions in the chat area. Thank you so much for those questions. Unfortunately, we're just about 3 minutes shy of time. I'm aware some of the speakers have been answering the questions in the chat. So what we will do, if you've got any questions, please do send us an email at training@mojaloop.io. We will get back to you with the responses. The questions and the feedback are also useful for us to refine the content or clarify what's going on, what you're seeing on the Mojaloop training program. And we do encourage you all, this is just a taste and overview of what to expect in each of these 3 courses. Hub 209, DFSP 209, and the new course that focuses on the tools, the testing toolkit. Please do go to learn.mojaloop.io and take these and many other courses. As mentioned, there are a few more courses that are coming up fairly soon. If you're interested in participating in the development of any of those courses, please reach out again, training@mojaloop.io. Just before I release you, I do want to bring to your attention that as a community, we meet every quarter. The next meeting is happening on April 25th to 28th at Mount Meru Hotel in Arusha, Tanzania. We hope you can join us for this meeting. We will focus on business and technical sessions. And you'll get to hear from the people working on developing the code, the open source community contributors, and just get updates on what's happening in the process of developing the code, and as well as networking. I think it would be really great to see a number of people, a number of you come and actually interact and put a name to a face, something that we've been looking forward to for quite a while right now. The details are on the Mojaloop website. If you go to mojaloop.io and navigate yourself to the events page, you can find all the details there, or alternatively send me an email at soriko@mojaloop.io, and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction and see that you are able to join us. With that, I thank you all for joining us, and the link to this webinar will be shared again soon. For those who missed it or for those who want to watch it again. And immediately after this, you will get a survey. Please give us your feedback so that we can continue to improve this experience for all of you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.